I just got a text from Cust.
Oh, God.
It just says,
Did he win?
do you know what's really cheap? Getting keys cut. How much do you think that he thought that getting keys cut were? Like, when you walk in to, like, hey, I need a new key.
It's like a game of Aladdin things.
What are they going to be like? $70 for a new key? Isn't it like $1?
I mean, can you text him how much he thinks it's cost? Because this can't make this up. I'm going to guess he thought it would be like $50, $55.
Mayo experience.
Mayo experience. Mayo experience. Mayo experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by DraftKings. Week 5, DraftKings Picks and preview. We're going to go through each of the positions, talk about ownership and optimal rate on this Friday. So obviously all of that stuff can change, so you best get your sub to runthesims.com right now to make sure that you have all of the updated projections, all the updated ownership, and all of the updated simulations, including the prop sniper, which came through on Thursday night. Was it injury related? Yes, but hey, that's part of playing unders sometimes. Guys get hurt, and then the under, complete cash. Don't worry about that. runthesims.com/Mayo to get that. Tambo is in studio with me, hosting the Monday show on Mayo Media Network live if you ever have any questions, the Thursday show live if you ever have any questions, and the Sunday morning show at 9:45 a.m. Eastern Time to walk you through the slate. And if you do have questions, you can hit up Tambo at shipitnation.com, code Mayo, to get yourself 10% off.
Yeah, it's good. And the Sunday show has been great. If people are watching this one, it is a nice carryover. We obviously break it down on here, go through, build some lineups, look at optimals, positions, things like that. But Sunday is the final information. The place is a free show. Check it out, 9:45 a.m. Eastern, right here on the Mayo Media Network.
There's 200 spots remaining in the Listeners League. I assume those will be gone by Friday afternoon. So if you haven't got your spot yet and you are watching this or listening, then please go get that right now. Smash the like and sub to the channel while you're here as well. Rate and review the audio podcast. And I want to jump into running back right away. Do you know who the projected highest owned running back is this week?
Is it going to be David Montgomery?
It's your boy, 8chan.
Okay.
Yeah, you tried to sell me on Herbert and 8chan last week. I didn't listen. They went off.
Yes.
Congratulations.
It did not fully pay off for me, but it was nice to have those in a lineup. But 8chan, you got to give a chance, Pat. You got to get him in there in your lineups. You might have to do it this week when he's owned.
So right now, the early ownership, and again, this isn't going to be exactly perfect on a Friday rather than a Sunday morning, but 22%. Yet his optimal rate right now is 24%. So he's still a good play.
Yeah, it's going to show up that way, I think. Mostert's $100 more, much lower ownership if you want to do that. But I do think, again, they still are talking about him. They're still using him. I think this is a situation like some of the other ones that we've seen. We'll talk about it when we get to it later with Nakua and with Kupp likely coming back. How's that going to play out? They're both still here, but all the team is talking about this guy and how special he is. And like I said last week, I was fine to go back to him. Wasn't expecting the same result as the previous week. Didn't get the exact same result, but still got a great result overall.
Yeah. Do you worry at all that they're huge favorites in this game against the Giants? It does sound like Jeff Wilson may return. Mm-hmm. Not that Jeff Wilson's going to be like, hey, 22 carries for Jeff Wilson. But if we just say all things are equal between Mostert and 8chan, and now you have Jeff Wilson coming back into the mix, even if he gets like 7 touches, 6 touches, like it does take away from the bottom line of these guys.
Yeah, I mean, first off, this guy's been extremely efficient. Everybody knows he's going to say, how would you play this guy? This is what I always talk about. Again, he's probably not going to stay that efficient. It's just not likely to happen, and I get that part. The price hasn't really moved, though, is the thing. And yes, Wilson coming back is another factor. The setup of, the ownership. There is reasons to be obvious. He's not my favorite running back play by any means. I'm just saying I understand where the love is coming from. And I think you can still get away with using him in some of these lineups just based on his price point.
He is the highest projected points per dollar running back on the board, too, at $6,100 on DraftKings. So the next 5, so the top 5 are 8chan at 22, Mixon at 21, Bijan, DeAndre Swift, and Kyron Williams. Those are the top 5 in terms of ownership, with Williams coming in at 15%. Some of the other names popping up, Kamara, Connor, David Montgomery, Madison for reasons unknown that I'm not completely sure about. You're not playing Madison this week, are you?
I don't have him down right now, at least. I didn't dig too far on him, but the Mixon one doesn't surprise me. But at the start of the week, you think this would be the spot. You get him at a little bit lower ownership. We just saw what San Francisco with CMC did. Not saying he's him, but the price of $6,400. But now he's got all the steam, and I'm going to have to go back now, and that's going to force me into playing Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, Burrow, just playing them all. I don't care.
Yeah, I mean, it would worry me because I'm not playing that many lineups. Like I'll play my one in the big like 200, one and maybe two in the 150, whatever it might be. I just can't go down the Joe Burrow road this week. And I know it's one of these situations where you want to be early and get all this breakout. Like if I was going to do that game at all, and we'll talk about this in stacks, I would probably play Connor as a running back on one side and Tyler Boyd for the savings.
Yeah, it's definitely a good
side.
game to get pieces of. I actually have this will, I don't know if it'll blow you away or not, but I actually have interest in the Dobbs side.
I can see that.
Right? You can go Dobbs, Ertz, Marquise Brown, Wilson's been getting action, and then you also have that's a way you could use Mixon. If you like Mixon, you don't have to. Though.
I don't like Mixon.
Right. So then I'm saying then you can get your Boyd or your Chase on the other side, and especially with us waiting on T. Higgins news. But the T. Higgins news does factor into it as well for me. Not just looking for some Burrow breakout, as much as that when you get the condensed target tree down, that gives me already a better way that I can stack out and build. And that's why I think the Cardinals side is interesting on the opposite as well.
For reference, per DVOA, the worst 5 rush defenses so far this season, from 32nd down to 28th, you have the Panthers are the worst, Broncos, Bengals, Dolphins, and Texans. And then it's the Cardinals, actually, which I assume is why Joe Mixon is getting all this love, plus the gimped up Burrow. And then the best run defenses so far this year, it's not the Titans. They're number 2. The Eagles are the best run defense in football. Titans, Seahawks, Lions, and Browns. So you have Seahawks on bye, Browns on bye, then it's the Ravens after that, along with the Jags. So watch out for that in the Sunday morning game, but we're not talking about that slate. We're talking about the main slate. We're not talking about getting up super early to jam your lineups. And your show is going to be going on at the same time. So in terms of optimal, I said that Achane is number 1. Then it's David Montgomery, Bijan, DeAndre Swift, and then Kyron Williams again. Then it's Joe Mixon. He is number 6. It's not like he's a bad play by any means, but his optimal leverage is like minus 8% because the ownership is coming in so high.
Yeah, all just depends on how you want to play it. I think, like I said, there's ways to get different. That I don't like Swift again. Didn't like him last week. Don't like Kyron Williams as much as I did last week. I loved him last week, and he came through for me as well. So those are 2 of the guys that I would have less interest that are on that list. I think David Montgomery is picking up some steam. Obviously, the spot that he's in, the amount of carries that he's been getting.
It's a great spot.
Yeah. So,
but here's the issue, though. All the guys that I've named are like $6,000 and above. That makes stacking, depending on which stack that you take with your quarterback and receivers, kind of difficult.
I think there's a lot of cheap stacks you can play this week.
Okay. So if we just look like points per dollar wise, like if it came down to me and I'm really racking my brain about where I want to go with this, I think I would take a chance on Breece Hall at $5,400. Mm-hmm. Like that is a cheap, big boom play. Now you hope that Dalvin Cook doesn't get put into the mix or anything like that, but that's a cheap one. Isaiah Pacheco at $5,700 seems great too.
Yeah, I like him too.
So like those are the 2 cheap-ish ones. I guess you could say Dameon Pierce. He's a bit banged up. Let's see what his note is coming into Friday. He was a full participant on Thursday, so we're good on that front. So you have...
He's got other pieces coming back too, by the way, with that O-line.
Is Tunsil's back, right?
Yeah, I think there's more than that too. There was other pieces missing, so that's another just note for him at 5,300. He's not going to get the love when you've got Breece Hall right there. You've got guys just above it, and then all those guys in the 6K range. So Pierce could be a little bit sneaky there that you could use him either by himself or as a secondary stack.
Yeah, so the guys that I'd be really targeting, I know I went all in on Bijan. I think I didn't go all in on him last week. I went all in on his receiving props last week because it's been at 3.5 every week so far, and he's beat the number every single week, and it's like at plus money too. It's really bizarre. But Bijan, he hasn't scored. Has he scored a touchdown yet?
He hasn't scored a rushing.
He hasn't scored. He has 1 touchdown on the year through 4
the year.
games.
Remember the pass to him, and then he did the crazy juke.
That's right.
Like, oh God, this guy is for real. And then,
so
he's obviously good. But
I like the Texans in this game, but Bijan he's like an auto 20 points every game, basically without scoring a touchdown. And this is his best matchup yet.
Speaking of the Texans, this is maybe Bobby Tree's week for you.
Maybe. I'm curious. I haven't looked at the ownership. We're going to get to the quarterback ownership in a second, but I would guess that Stroud must rate out pretty highly.
He probably does. Yeah, I see. He's in the tidbits today. People like him, so he's been having great games so far. He's 6,000, but there's other quarterbacks this week too. So
well, the other issue is with the Texans, and now we've seen it a few times. And I think as a one-off, Robert Woods actually is a pretty decent play because he's relatively consistent. If he has his big game, you get it at a cheap price. But if you're trying to win GPPs with the Stroud stack, Woods probably isn't the right option for that because Tank Dell is just a deep threat. Mm-hmm. And if he's going to score like 30 points. It'll be like 5 points or 30 points. And Collins is kind of the same way. He's the guy that they use in the red zone, that if you were trying to maximize your points in the right way, because listen, if Stroud has 19 fantasy points, you're probably not going to win shit that week.
Yeah, I've got them down the board a little bit. So this game I like better for secondary stacks. So it would work to what you said.
like
if you had a
Woods.
Bijan Woods, or I like if you had this one's off the board, but I can't believe he's $3,300 right now. But you could have a Pierce Pitts.
I'm not playing Pitts.
Most people probably won't.
Play Jonnu Smith.
Yeah, $3,300 for Pitts.
For Pitts?
Yeah.
Has he outperformed that number in any of the past 16 games that he's played?
There was one good game last year against Carolina. He had 19 or something.
Like, he might just be legitimately bad.
The Pitts?
Yeah, he is the Pitts.
Yeah, maybe. Kyle V. Pitts.
Damian Pierce is only $5,300. I only bring these guys up because it'll probably be Connor and Pacheco for me, or maybe Breece Hall, if I want to drop down and save some money at tight end. Like, value-wise, like Tyler Algier pops up in the optimals at 5% of the time. Now, he's $4,700. Half the time he doesn't do anything. Like, his floor is like 3 points, which is not good. But if you needed to save money somewhere, it's like him or Zeke.
What about Javonte? Is he coming back?
I don't know.
Because if not, McLaughlin is there on the opposite side. McLaughlin, I guess, if you want to call it that, the other side of Breece Hall.
What do you think that he does let's say Javonte doesn't play? Like, what's a realistic outcome for Jaleel McLaughlin?
I have no idea. It's
Yeah.
probably not the greatest, but
And he's still 5,000.
But you don't get very many running back cheap anymore. Like, that's just the prices that you're getting. That is what your backup running backs are going to pretty much be now. You get the 45s, the 47s at times, but what's the difference between 47 and 5K? Nothing.
Yeah, that's fair.
$300. I get it. I'm just saying like that. Where I'm not in love with it. I'm just saying if you needed something there, I think I like. I know we're going all over the place, but I think I like Garrett Wilson. I think he's in the mid range of the wide receiver pricing as opposed
He's
to like
$6,000.
Yeah, I like that about him. Not $5,900. You know, I was talking about Best Buy pricing. He's not that. You got to pay up. You got to pay that extra
You got to pay that
$100.
$100. Yeah, you got the tax in on him.
Yes.
Tyler Boyd, to mention, he is $4,500 in that Arizona game. Like, that feels like the cheap piece that you want to use.
I like the Connor Boyd one you mentioned.
That's what I said, Connor Boyd.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, because Connor's only $5,700. Now you do have some legitimate savings in your lineup for when we want to go all in on whoever we want to go all in on in these games. It could be like Jefferson, Kirk, Pacheco, something like that. I think that's viable this week. I might get away from like the overstacking some of these games. It just has not been working out for me.
Yeah, it's dependent. Again, like we talk about all the time, it's better in these smaller fields where it's like if you get it, if that's the game, that could just be enough because other people are going to have mistakes within their lineups versus in the large fields, somebody just happens to have the nuts everywhere. Trust me, I review these lineups every week. It's insanity somehow what these people can land on. But back to the other point, I was going to say this is the first time for me maybe ever. I actually kind of have a little bit of interest, at least as of today, in Mahomes, only because I feel like I'm getting a more clear cut on this. Like I feel like Mahomes, Pacheco, Rice, and Kelsey. Like I feel like that's the setup now. Some good stuff on Rice in the tidbits this week, and then Kelsey is Kelsey. Continue to push him. I mean, it's possible this week for sure.
How many times has Rice been stopped inside like the 5-yard line so far this year? It feels like a lot.
Yeah, someone's got the stats, but the tidbit on it was somewhat around that type of stuff, like the upside that you could see from him, and the price is there. I don't know how popular he'll get if he's going to end up getting up to like 12 to 15%. Not as high on it, but 5 and 7 targets the last couple weeks. I mean, he's getting opportunities 3 of the 4 weeks already. So I think at his price point, it's just a way that you could actually get into Mahomes and try and unlock the full potential or ceiling of him. Maybe it's a better smaller field play because, again, you don't need everything to go right. Mahomes could still have a big game. Rice could just get you 12 to 14. Kelsey does have 2 touchdowns and you're good and you feel good about that stack. But don't think I can play Madison on the other side, and it's very hard to fit Jefferson once you go that route.
It is. So let's talk receivers. Top 5 owned coming into the week right now. Jamar Chase, number 1. Fun.
It makes no sense.
I agree.
How is Jamar Chase and Mixon, like where's...
And Tyler Boyd still showing a level. Like people are just being like, hey, I'll play Burrow, Chase, and Boyd. And if I'm not playing those guys, I'm playing Mixon. Like,
Yeah, Burrow's coming in.
That seems like, honest to God, loading. I don't understand it. People look at this Bengals team, look at their shitty offense that hasn't scored 50 points yet this year, total, through 4 games. And like, we need all those guys.
Yeah, that is very odd. And now I'm seeing even Burrow's getting a boost overnight as well. The thing is, though, this is what's great if that's actually happening, because I definitely think a Bengal is going to get there, at least one of those plays. And I know you mentioned the Connor one, but like I said, I'm going to keep going to it here. It's disgusting. But he basically has Stroud numbers, DK scoring-wise, is Dobbs. He's got 25, 17, and 24 in the last 3 weeks. You get the opposite side of where everyone's, you got to pile in on Cincy. Well, guess what? If Cincy does something, it's going to be because they're pushed from the other side. the way to get much cheaper access to it and be able to build out differently would be go to the Dobbs side. It's gross, but it's not really. And he may even get like 4 or 5% ownership. We'll see.
The other part of this I don't understand is why are people just because it does seem like people are overloading on this game and they're overloading on the Bengals side. Maybe because it's a little bit cheaper it's tough to do with Kansas City as we talked about because you don't know exactly where the ball is going to go. If you have to put Jefferson in and he's $9,400, it gets pretty expensive quickly if you do the Vikings side. But this game only has a projected point total of 44.5. Like it's a point more than Denver Jets.
Yeah, it's more so the condensed offenses. Again, this is, I think, one of the most underrated things, and it may seem to some watching it that are advanced players or even intermediate and understand this, but this is people are lost on this topic of game totals. You have to get the 50 total. No, you need fantasy points. You need to go find the game where you can stack them up. If Higgins is out in this game and Arizona's already as condensed as it is, that is what you want, more than a 53-point total with 7 to 8 options on both sides. Like that's what people can't grasp or understand. It can be 27 to 21 for 48 points and just barely beat the over on this game, but you can get a ton of fantasy points within that score.
That happened to us. I forget what game it was. We targeted a low total game. I think it was Pittman. It was
Houston, Indy?
It may have been Houston, and it ended up going way over the
Stroud, Dell, Pittman, whatever it was. Like again, they were all, I think, the most expensive guy at that entire 4-man stack. I think it was a 3-1 on the Stroud side with Pittman on the run back. Maybe even Moss was in there, but Moss was like 54. Pittman was like 6,100. That's what I'm saying. We also play a price game. It's a salary game. The price matters. So when you can stack for condensed offenses, and that's why I kind of like the Dobbs side a little bit because we just know it's Dobbs, Connor, Brown, and Ertz, and some will say, what's his name, Michael Wilson, or what's the guy that's been coming in?
Yeah, Michael Wilson.
Yeah, Michael Wilson. And then on the other side, but think about how that works. When I go Mahomes, I get my cheap Rice in there, Kelsey, and then I put Jefferson, you're screwed. You got nothing. On this one here, Dobbs, who's been putting up the similar numbers for DK scoring, all I care about right now. At his price, crushing it, point per dollar. Brown, 5K. Ertz, 3,700 or whatever he is this week. Now I can fit a Jamar Chase and go off elsewhere, 3,500 for Ertz.
And Hollywood Brown has one of the highest market shares of his team's targets of any receiver in football right now. I believe it's at 27%. It's a shockingly high number.
Yeah, it's pretty solid.
So
that's what it is. And then you get the dome. I mean, the stadium that they play in is obviously good.
Never bad weather, anything like that. So looking at the top 5 owned this week, it's Chase above all at the moment. That's around 25%, which is just crazy.
Would you rather Chase or Mixon? Not to cut you off, but just to ask. Had to pick one.
Chase.
Okay. Just curious. I was going to ask you that anyway, but you brought it up, so okay.
Chase, Jefferson, Hill are the top 3 in owned, so 25, 17, 16. Then Wendell Robinson at $3,000, and then Michael Pittman at $6,400.
Robinson is cheap for what he can do.
Yeah, but I have a serious question about what does he actually do? Because I bet his over receptions that worked out really well. I just don't see the game how he gets there. They target him legitimately 2 yards down the field.
Yeah,
basically his optimal fantasy performance is what Alvin Kamara did out of the backfield last week, but he scores a touchdown. It's 11 for 40 and a touchdown.
Yeah, it's just catchable targets. Again, not my favorite there. I'm saying I understand why it happens, and also as you talked about on a 10-game slate where you're going to need some value and stuff like that, it's not as much as what he's going to get to his ceiling or what you're saying. I don't see a ceiling for him. I understand that. And I tend to agree with you. It's going to be like a 5 for 6 for 48 yards, and then you need the touchdown, and then people are going to be complaining on Twitter about that. Like, oh, of course the 3K chalk play gets there at the craziest touchdown, whatever. But that 3K goes a long way when you can legitimately see him get those targets. That's what people are looking at. It's probably more of a cash game play, but just to say it, that's where people see it. What does it do for my lineup, and what's the safety plus upside that comes with it?
I'm glad you said that. For cash games, I do think it makes a bit more sense because even if he doesn't do anything, you know he's going to be highly owned. So your 0 or 2 points is 2 points in everyone else's lineup. You don't necessarily need to get leverage there. He could absolutely submarine you in a GPP. To look at him right now, he's 15% projected owned. His optimal percentage is 3%. He has the worst negative leverage score on the slate.
It's going to happen that way, but I think if you go back to week 1, I'm sure the Washington defense looked like shit too.
Sure, guys get there, but didn't we, in the season preview that we did for this and talked about the cheap receivers, is there anything worse than a chalky 3,000 receiver.
No, I
Those guys
agree there.
miss
But
so much.
it's slate dynamics. Again, people confuse this with that and the optimal rates and the leverage and the sims and all that. And I agree with it. I understand it. I just explained where it would make more sense. What I'm saying is, and the reason I brought up the Washington D from week 1 is it's the slate dynamics. If that's just the cheap thing that makes everything else work, that's where you have to sacrifice, in my opinion, at least some of what that's saying, take it out of a vacuum for a second and say, but if my lineup works everywhere else, and you said it yourself, on this 10-game slate with some of these tougher options, if you're trying to get if you think it's going to be, if it ends up being Mahomes, Kelsey, Jefferson that's needed, guess how much more valuable that 5 for 6 for 48 is for a guy like Robinson than not. And sometimes you see the opposite. Last week, a lot of people in their optimals plugged in, in some of the winning lineups, plugged in Berrios at like no ownership as the Miami piece to run back that Buffalo game, and just a way to make it work. So you can look at it from that angle too, and it's in this game. If you're going to go the Miami side, you can run a cheap piece back there. I think HN ran back with Wandale will be a popular secondary stack. Like, you got to look at it from those angles. Doesn't mean it's right, but I can see why it's getting to where it is.
Oh, absolutely. I understand why it's getting to where it is. If he was like 2% owned and no one was using Wendell, I'll be like, yeah, decent play.
But isn't he still a shitty player? Everything you just said, he's not going to hit a ceiling, so it shouldn't matter.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't use him anyway.
Right.
But I would understand the case for him a little bit more. But just looking at some of the other options between like $3,000 and $3,200, like he's not, like, realistically, what's the difference between him and Rondale Moore?
Right, but that's what I was just going to say, and I was going to use him as the Berrios example. But you just said, what about this Arizona-Cincy game? Why is everyone on it? But if you're going to be on it,
why not take the guy who no one's using?
Get Wandale out of your lineup and use Rondale and just make that work and hope that he has the big game play or something along those lines, or wait and see on, I don't know the latest on Amon-Ra St. Brown, but Raymond is there.
Would be right there. Or maybe Marvin Jones gets himself back in.
Maybe. The other one I was going to bring up, Aguilar. I know a lot of people looking at wide receiver ones versus Pittsburgh.
It depends on the injury report, because both Beckham was limited and Bateman was full. So those two might be back. Therefore, Aguilar wouldn't play anymore.
Yeah, I just think, it depends on the stack you're looking with him, but I definitely think there's options that you could go to here. I was just saying that's why he's going to project like he does based off of that.
Tight ends, we have Kelsey, Goddard, and Ertz. Then Chig and Laporta would be your top 5 in terms of ownership. And then you have Hawkinson there as well. Then Kyle Pitts. Can't quit Kyle Pitts. $3,300.
Can't quit Kyle Pitts. I like that one. $3,300. Yeah. Ertz is going to be more popular for sure at $3,500.
As he should be.
Yeah, it's fair. I just think, again, that's like you're looking for the same thing. Well, let me see Ertz have the same conversation we just had.
Ertz is complete.
11-2, 11-8, 2, 13, 6, 10. Like, this guy does nothing.
But he's also a tight end.
Sure.
For one thing. And two, you're banking on touchdown equity with Zach Ertz. That if it just circles back to him, being a big body tight end, I would say that the touchdown likelihood for Zach Ertz versus Wendell Robinson is much higher. Not to say he's going to score a touchdown, but if we just look even, I would guess.
Him and Kyle Pitts have the same amount of touchdowns in the last 10 games. Ertz and Kyle Pitts.
In the past 10 games overall, or the past 10 games that each of them have played?
Past 10 that each have played.
Okay. And
so if you just go back, I just looked at the game logs for both for the last 10 games.
Okay.
2 touchdowns for each. 1-1.
Really? Yes. I for some reason, I thought that Ertz had more than that. That's interesting.
I bet most would. And again, who knows? I'm not like the biggest Kyle Pitts advocate. I'm saying it's the same type of conversation. I actually like Conklin for cheaper, $3,200. That's the guy I like here. Chig is also at $3,200. I like him. And then I actually like Laporta at $5K. And I don't know if we'll get there, but when we get to quarterback.
Get Lions
side of that game, where if people are all going to Montgomery and you can get Lions through the air, Jameson Williams back.
We saw that with him last year. I just think he's going to play 10 snaps.
It's possible.
That's just what he does. Even when he was healthy last year, he was playing 10
snaps.
Yeah,
we still have to wait on the news. What's the latest on Amon-Ra?
He's not practicing. I almost guarantee you he's going to play.
Okay. We got to wait and see. That'll be Sunday morning update.
Sunday morning, yeah. Tune into Ship It Nation. So those are the tight ends that project out pretty well. In terms of optimal, there's 3. It's Kelsey, Andrews, and Ertz. That shouldn't be super surprising.
Yeah. Andrews has been really good so far.
Yeah, basically the way that it's structured, you can even tell it by price point. Kelsey is the expensive option that pops out in all of the optimals. Andrews is sort of like the bit more expensive. He's $5,500. He's in like 12%. Then it's Ertz because he's the cheap guy that the projections like the most. So defenses. Who's the defense we're going to use to help fill in the pieces this week?
I think Tennessee is the popular defense this week.
I would guess that. Just looking at the price next to them, that makes an absolute amount of sense.
Yeah, and I thought to start the week it might be Carolina, But now, because so many people are in on Montgomery and everything that's going on, you won't see it get as popular as it could. Where, like you said, like I was looking at it from like, think about it, like you just said, Goff throws the ball. You can get to them that way. And then if everyone's playing David Montgomery, but that's what actually forced it where now nobody is really on the Carolina defense. So for $200 cheaper than Tennessee, they're an option. I think both sides of that New England game, 3K and 3,100.
For reference, right now, the highest owned defense for the week, projection-wise, is Tennessee at $2,400. Number 2 would be the Saints at $1,300. Or at $3,000, sorry.
What's the ownership you're seeing on the Patriots, the opposite side of that game for $100
Patriots, 7%. But they did just lose their best corner and their best pass rusher.
Yeah, the other thing is, too, is like the last week, this ties into like 3 conversations at once because it's this defense I still want to talk about, but Kamara and Carr, the New England side, like all Carr is doing now that he has a guy like Josh Jacobs back underneath with him is, at least last week, was just check it down. What was it, 13 catches for 33 yards?
Yep.
That is just, how do you even get to that? How does the D pick up anything off of that?
He did have like a negative 8-yard reception at one point. So it wasn't as bad as the numbers looked.
Yeah, gets a boost a little bit, 41, but still. You always talk about this, and I just wonder, like, Carr, you can get after him, but it's like that's the same thing. Is this defense going to be able to get much more out of it? And they lost some pieces and things like that where you mentioned it. Maybe it is the Saints side that's better.
I think the Saints side is better. I do feel like that's a game where everyone's just going to run. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's going to be a lot of opportunity. Maybe there is, but that just feels like both these coaches want to play a defensive battle. Like, hey, we're not going to we know our quarterbacks reek. We're not going to take shots down the field. Like, the one who would be the most likely to do it would be the Saints because they have the guys who can actually get down the field. Mm-hmm. But that would be, I don't know.
Maybe the Pittsburgh D going against Lamar. Lamar will try some shit now that he's got guys coming back, try and get passes out there to work for guys like Bateman and OBJ, and Pittsburgh can pick that off, plus the sacks you pick up, all that. They're 2,700.
So just to look at the adjusted sack rate so far for the season of like the cheaper options, obviously Washington didn't pan out. I think they did have 3 or 4 sacks though on Justin Fields. Like that's kind of what we were looking for.
Right.
Didn't expect Fields to go absolutely off.
Yeah, it was nuts.
In that game. Apparently, you just have to get rid of Chase Claypool. Like he was the problem of the Bears' offense.
Fixed that quickly, and now he's likely to be let go after all that.
Carolina is 5th in adjusted sack rate. They get to the passer.
Yeah, I have interest. I thought they would pick up steam as the week goes on. It turns out it's Tennessee.
The issue with Carolina is, will they just face 35 rushing attempts? And if that's the case, then it's no bueno.
Feels like they'll face a lot, but I also think like David Montgomery fumble incoming or something. There's going to be opportunities still, I think, that they'll get, and then Goff eventually, again, with his weapons, thinking that if you think Amon-Ra is going to play, you've got now Amon-Ra, Jameson Williams, these other guys he's going to try and force it to. So I think Laporta's been great. Like I think he's going to get the ball out there still. So I don't hate him, but again, everything we're talking against is priced in. They're 2,200.
How much is Indy?
Probably too expensive.
Are they too expensive? Because I actually have a lot of interest in Indy.
3,200.
I don't think that's a bad play.
No, it's not, because it's actually just the pivot off of those other 2 that we just talked about.
They're going
to run all game, and it's opposite of the chalk D. So I would actually have more interest than I thought in it once I see this.
Like when you get to that, it becomes, how does this game flow go? Like what you need in this situation for the Colts D to probably be pretty good is the Colts to get up 10-0 or something.
Yeah.
If that happens and you force Tennessee to throw and they can't just run the ball 40 times, which I think is entirely possible, then all of a sudden the Colts D is looking pretty good. But I would say you are correct that just looking down, the easy plug-in piece is going to be the Titans.
That's where people are going for sure, 2,400.
Cardinals at 28? 1% ownership tag. Everyone's playing everyone in that game. Maybe maybe Arizona's D against gimped up Burrow is the play.
Yeah, until gimped up Burrow becomes breakout Burrow again.
Okay, then play Burrow lineups. Enjoy.
No, you're right. I'm saying that's just what ends up happening. Giants,
but no one's even going on them.
Giants 2K.
I don't know if I can do that. I think I'd rather play the Panthers at 22.
Yeah. Okay. All right, I'll put this one in just in case. But,
and how much is Houston? Houston's too much, aren't they? Yeah, Houston's 35. That's a lot for Houston. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about these stacks then. Where do you want to start? Because at Ship It Nation, you guys have the stack tool, right?
Stack rankings, yeah.
Stack rankings.
They're
Code
up.
Mayo, by the way, if you want to check those out.
Yeah, that's where I'm getting my Dobbs love from. But again, it's looking like there's going to be some ownership attached to it. We'll see how it goes. But even still, it's just cheap enough. And then the other thing is the Burrow stack does land in the top 5 right now. So just that's the other thing about why I think people are getting to that game. But there's definitely other stacks. Zoomer Zach, your guy. What do you think about him?
I'm not doing it.
4,900.
I will not be duped by that.
6K, Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, that's fine.
$3,200
play all the
Conklin.
Jets offense that you want. I'll play Brees Hall.
I think so will everybody else. This would be the leverage.
I don't think that people are playing Brees Hall. I'm not seeing that.
I'm seeing 15 to 20 right now.
I'm seeing 11.
The matchup's really good as well.
Sure.
People know
At
this.
least give me the guy who's actually good and not Zach Wilson.
I thought he was good. Everyone said he's good again now.
No, everyone said that he's good for a guy who, like, I can't say that.
We'll leave it at that.
We'll leave it at that.
Okay. What about Stafford?
That's Stafford, Daniel Jones, maybe by himself. Would be,
Daniel Jones, Tyreek could be a sneaky stack.
yeah?
You just play those two.
Or Daniel Jones, I guess you could play A-Chain if you wanted to
Yeah.
on that side. I mean, Tua's getting a lot of love. Let's do Stafford to start off with, because Hurts is projecting to be the highest owned quarterback.
Yeah, and I'm seeing Burrow get up there now too, so
Yeah.
it's surprising. But talk to me about this real quick first. Nakua with Cup back. Nakua 7,700, Cup 8,600. Both, neither.
Both.
Both?
Both.
Okay.
Like, if you're not going to play Cooper Kupp this week, when are you going to play Cooper Kupp?
When he has a good week and he goes up in price next week.
Yeah, I mean, if you
Whatever it is,
everyone wants to be like week early on the Bengals, or you could just play Cooper Kupp, who's the best receiver in fantasy, basically, and just hope that he's healthy. He's practicing in full. It seems to be fine.
Didn't even really get a price break. We technically did because you should see like 9,200, but still.
The problem is this is no different than the Chiefs game and the Vikings game, that once you start stacking up this game, it gets out of control very quickly.
Well, the nice part is if you can just pick one of Cup and Nakua, is that Stafford is way cheaper than Mahomes. So it's like you get away with it that way. If you're calling like your Mahomes, Kelsey, different position, I get it. But a Stafford Cup or a Stafford Nakua, you still have more money to spend.
Sure, but if you then put Rice into that stack with Kelsey and Mahomes, it's about the same.
Yeah, depends on how you do it exactly. I just think if that stack, I mean,
What do you do on the way back? Like, who is the eagle that you play in this?
I like AJ Brown
Okay, so
or Goddard. It's up
but
to you.
AJ Brown just had his good games. So doesn't that mean it's a Devonta Smith game?
Yeah, we did this last week, didn't we? With Achan, where we say, oh, I can't do it again, and then he does it again.
Oh, you got to pick one of them.
Yeah, I like AJ Brown.
Okay, so let's throw in AJ Brown.
He's expensive too, though. 8,000.
They're all expensive. Then that gives us 4,000 left per player. That means Panthers D has to go in,
Okay.
and then it has to be that like Connor Brees Hall running back combo kind of thing. Now we're at 3,300. Yikes.
So what I've got? I've got Stafford, Cup. Do you still have Nakua in here as well?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see this. This is a mighty stack that we're running with here. 3,300. Man, get your Wandale on. See, that's why he's going to become.
This is where he would end up fitting in, obviously. Yeah.
Who's the cheaper tight end that you liked? Ertz, you said?
Yeah, Ertz.
Leaves you
But
3,200.
I'm already playing Connor, so
Basically, it leaves you Connor, Ertz, and Rondale Moore. You just run the 3 Cardinals with nothing on the other side.
nothing attached to them. Yeah,
Yeah.
This lineup sucks.
That's the problem. But that's why I think you have to pick between Cup and Nakua.
All right, let's pick Cup. Let's try to build the Cup lineup. Although I think, gun to my head, I'd probably play Nakua, but let's try to build it out with Cup and see what happens.
And after we can do this, just a note, because it's how I'd look at it, or people that are out there watching and building a single entry or trying to build a little setup here. Is there a cheap Philly guy? Because we could put like Goddard in the tight end,
I just
open up another wide receiver spot via playing Nakua instead of Brown for 300 less, and then use a 5K tight end in Goddard or whatever he costs. I think
he's too expensive.
4,200.
4,200 is too much for him. He doesn't do anything. He is an afterthought in this offense. It's like Shane Steichen went to Indianapolis and be like, I took all my Goddard plays with me.
He has 3 touchdowns to Ertz and Pitts' 2 touchdowns in that same game log setup that I was going through.
Sure. Does he have 100 total receiving yards this year?
He has.
I would say less would be my guess.
Yes, I see 88.
That's tough. It's a tough scene for him.
What happened on week 1?
Just
Played all the snaps, got 1 target and no catches.
against New England, yeah. They stopped. They basically just started running the ball in the second half when they got up by a bunch.
They shut down the number 1 Dallas Scott. He's too good, Pat.
Yeah, he is too good.
That's
apparently.
why. But I don't know. I was just saying if someone wants a way to build it. You are still hoping on it, but I like the point you made earlier when you were talking about Ertz being a tight end versus when we're talking about values at wide receiver. We talked about this on the strategy show we did with Hoop, myself, and you, and I do like that call. Yes, Goddard has not done it either, and it's 4,200 and all that, but I'm saying if you're building this stack out and you really do want to get to Kupp and Nakua, and you say that's where those targets are going to go this week. Atwell, by the way, can fit into this mix as well if you wanted. I'm just saying that would be a way to build it where you can still get a 3-1 stack if you want it and save some money versus we were very deprived when it came to looking for money at these two last positions in that first build that we did.
Let's take Kupp out and put Nakua back in.
Okay.
So Stafford, Puka, A.J. Brown, Connor, Brees Hall, Panthers D. We have $5,100.
So who do you want? Do you want to play like Laporta instead of David Montgomery in this lineup? Like I think Detroit is going to put up points. Obviously in a smash spot at home, 10-point favorites, big team total. It is Carolina. People are scoring on them. So
should we take out Panthers D then?
Oh, I forgot we actually put Carolina in this. I was thinking we put the 22 or the Tennessee D in here.
All right, let's put Tennessee D in then.
Yeah, I thought we went there because they're 2,400. We were talking about them up front. My bad. So now we have the flex play too. So what do you think is better? Do you think playing Laporta or Montgomery?
Laporta.
Okay.
Josh Reynolds.
Let's see what this looks like. The one I thought of was
So that gives us $5,000 for a receiver in flex. So that's where like Robert Woods comes into the conversation. Rashee Rice comes into the conversation. Let's plug Rice in as a receiver, and then see what happens.
Tank.
I can get $6,500 for a flex. Is there any good running back in that range? Hawkinson. Play double tight end.
I don't like that. Laporta you have in there right now.
Yeah.
I was going to try with Woods and see what I got. He's 4,000.
Woods is 4,000. So that would leave you around like 6,100. You get A-Chain.
Okay, so if we go Woods, and then I messed up and took A.J. Brown up by accident, I'm putting him back in. It gives me 6,100.
Devon A-Chain.
Yeah.
$6,100.
That's a nice lineup.
Is it?
Stafford, Nakua, Brown, James Conner, Brees Hall, A-Chan, the Tennessee defense, and then you've got Laporta instead of a Montgomery, and you get your guy Robert Woods in there. I don't think there's much wrong with it. It's not like it's a super floor lineup or anything like that. Tennessee D is going to be owned. That's the problem there, but is it when you do all?
Just have to hope it hits.
You're different in a lot of other places, or you have guys like Woods, and who knows what Nakua's ownership turns into. Laporta should be under 10%. Like I feel like there's still plays in this that you can get away with, so I don't hate that one.
Okay, so let's try this a slightly different way. I want to start with Bijan, and we'll work backwards from there.
Start with Bijan, and that's it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Start with Bijan and see how that works.
And get Robert Woods for you?
We don't need to get Robert Woods right now because we can figure out what we want to do with everything else. We can see if we want to go CJ Stroud stack and maybe try to mix it up a little bit that way.
Is Robert Woods Wan'Dale Robinson for $1,000 more?
Maybe.
Okay. I was just going to ask you that because he has one touchdown in the last
absolutely.
million games, and he also only ever gets like 5, 6. He did have a 13-pointer in there, 14-pointer once last year. Like, I don't know. He's possible, but it does seem that way when you're like, again, this is what people look at, I think, though, Pat, is like Tank Dell, $800 more, but
the upside is there.
The upside is there, yeah. So
No, I completely understand.
I kind of like Rondale Moore when you keep saying that. I just don't know if I even want to put a Cincy guy in there, but I was just going to use him. But I also liked your Arizona, the Boyd Connor.
That's where I wanted to go with my other.
Yeah, I like that. Let's do that one.
So
feel good about that.
Bijan, Boyd, Connor. Now what do we have?
Lots of money. Now it becomes like where you want to go with your stack. I guess going back to it quickly, game by game, like Indy, Tennessee, whatever. New Orleans, we don't have a lot of interest in that game. The Detroit spot we've talked about multiple times. It's Carolina D or picking somebody on that side. Houston, Atlanta, we've already got Bijan. We'll see if someone like Dell or someone needs to go in Woods after. Baltimore, Pittsburgh didn't have a lot of love. Miami, Giants game. We do got to talk, like, should that be fitting into our lineups? It has almost a 48-point total. Miami's smashing. Giants suck now. Everyone knows they're the worst team in football, but of course this game somehow they'll cover, and who knows what else. It's just the way football goes. Philly, LA, we have nothing from that right now. Cincy, Arizona, we've got in there already. We could go to Brees Hall if you want with that Denver game. Good matchup. And then KC Mini, big totals. I think we need to be thinking about like KC Mini, Philly, LA, Miami, the Giants, like, and then Detroit at home. Pieces like that to plug into a lineup, regardless of where we're starting backwards from.
Okay, so let's start with these three: Bijan, Connor, and Boyd.
Yep.
And we'll call this the Goff stack.
Okay.
So let's put Goff in there. We'll throw in Goff and Laporta because we don't know about Amon-Ra right now.
And you can also just cut it off at that. Like
That's what I mean.
Yeah, well, like you were doing, I'm saying, but like just for people wondering, like I do like that, where you just build that little skinny stack. It does what it needs to do. It does enough for Goff at that price, and now you still have enough money to spend at all these other spots.
You can throw in Thielen as well if you want to. He's 5,100. So that gives you your two Lions. It gives you a run back with Thielen, who gets his 17 targets a game. Now you still have a wide receiver, flex, and defense to throw in. Do you want to go to the Titans D, or is this one you want to spend up a little bit and take Saints D, let's say?
I'm just mad right now. I can't use my joke because he's actually had a good start to the season. I was going to say it's Thielen, Wan'Dale Robinson for 5,100, but he has not been so far. He's had a good start to the season.
But basically what Thielen is doing is sort of the wish casting that people are having for me, like with Robert Woods or what people are doing with Wan'Dale, is that they're hoping they can get this Thielen game. But Thielen just keeps kind of doing it.
Yeah, Thielen just keeps getting it. You're right. It is incredible. He just somehow is always open. He's getting those catches, but it's someone we would make fun of and say is washed, who has not been so far this season. So he's shoving it back in our face a little bit. But I think you could do a couple things here. Like the secondary stack still exists if you had another wide receiver combo from another game that you liked.
I just got one in right now.
What do you got?
It leaves us with $7,000 for a flex.
So what do you have right now in the defense?
I have the Saints in just to
Fair.
throw them
Yeah,
in.
no, I actually don't mind that side of it. And then what was the other thing you put in, wide receiver?
I threw in Nico Collins to go with Bijan.
Okay, and now do we have two spots left with 60-50?
Well, we have one spot left because I have Thielen in there as well.
Oh, you did end up putting Thielen
I ended up putting Thielen in as a run back. Then I have Collins and Bijan together. It kind of leaves Connor out on an island by himself. No, he has Boyd with him, so
He's
that's
got Boyd.
not
That's
bad. We can go back down to Tennessee D. Let's just throw back in just to save that money and see what the flex gives us now. We can have up to $7,600.
Now you can get Kelsey in.
You can get Kelsey, Derrick Henry.
Did you go to Tennessee D?
Yeah.
Damn.
Why?
Just trying to get to 7,700. We could have got Nakua in there.
Is Nakua markedly different than like throwing Kelsey into this lineup?
Probably not, to be honest. You could do that. At least Kelsey has less to mess around with, right? In that place where you're like, again, you don't kind of know with that Ram side of things how that's actually going to go. But you got to assume, why would they stop? This is one thing, I guess, I'm sure people love this and are wondering about it. But like, why would they stop using Nakua? Like, there's so many people that seem to be worried about, oh, Cup's back. They're just not going to use this guy. The guy's a beast.
I'm worried that he is. It's not a worry. It's just a worry that he's not going to have 21 targets a game, like shit like that.
Yeah.
Instead, he'll have 10, which is fine.
Yeah, 10 last week, and he ended up with a big game. But again, I know what everybody's saying. We obviously understand that of it in that aspect. I just wonder, like, again, is it a spot where maybe you end up getting at a little lower ownership because people are worried that Cup's back. You can't play him at 7,700. I just don't think that's the case. And we used him already, so it's not like we were against that. I'm just trying to say I think that was one thing that stood out. But to get a piece of the action in Kansas City Mini, it does project pretty good still if you just plug in double tight end and put Kelsey.
So here is the other way that you can kind of finagle this. Let's say Amon-Ra is fine, and you can play Amon-Ra. So instead of putting in one of those guys into that last wide receiver spot, we take out Nico Collins. We put in Amon-Ra St. Brown. So now you have Goff, St. Brown, and Laporta again with Thielen on the comeback. And then in the flex, you can have $5,400. So that leaves Breece Hall. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely don't hate that. Other thing I was going to look at is if you take out Breece Hall and Amon-Ra, which you just did, and go to your guy and see if you can get that Robert Woods game because he does pop a little bit. It gets you to 9,200.
And then that is who?
It's so close.
Almost Jefferson?
Yeah, but we didn't know like we had Casey. I guess, oh man, we're really close now.
I mean, you can play Tyreek instead.
How do you unlock this? I was trying to take James Conner.
Well, the move is to take Thielen out and not use a Carolina run back.
Okay.
So you'd go Jefferson.
I was trying to get Pacheco Jefferson.
I think I'll.
You'll find it.
Let me work my magic on this. See if I can do this. So we'll go Boyd. Take out Breece Hall, and who do you want to get in? Pacheco is the flex.
Yep.
Pacheco is the flex. At least 3,200 at receiver. It's Rondale Moore.
Are you off Woods in this one?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's Pacheco, Jefferson.
So that leaves us with luminaries such as, the Crocodile on a Trenton Irwin.
You know what, though? I don't actually hate Rondale Moore in this because it's Connor and Moore with Boyd, and we're not getting to those quarterbacks. But like those at Rondale Moore's price at $3,200, you're basically just calling him and James Conner a combo pack for $9K.
Let's also not forget that Rondale Moore kind of sucks.
Oh, definitely. But this is pure setup of we've seen this hit a bunch of times. I've reviewed every lineup so far. I think on 3 of the 4 Millie Maker winners, we've seen running back with wide receiver, even as high as Mostert and Tyreek with no quarterback hit. So this combo can definitely hit. You still have the run back of the other side. You're unique because you're not on that quarterback and on either side. And then also Rondale Moore, a lot of these types of lineups with a guy like Jefferson and Bijan and ones like that will be anchored by someone like Wandale, where you're just taking pure leverage there on something that actually could still make sense. So I don't hate it for that reason.
Okay, can we find $100?
I'm sure you can.
Okay, so let's find $100 somewhere. Because we can't play Panthers D is the tough part. I mean, I suppose we could play Panthers D. But they just get a few pick sixes, it keeps everyone off the field. Because you could get up to Mingo as the bringback with the Goff stack. Because we don't have Thielen in here anymore. So we get him at 3,300, and it leaves us with 2,300 for a defense. But then it's Panthers D or Giants D, which is not optimal. I would guess that's not optimal, is how I would think about it.
If I take this out, let me try something here quick.
All right.
I think I got it. We lose some pieces, but we'll just see what this looks like. And I think it still has the good crossover and gets Mingo in there, so...
I mean, we don't need to play Mingo. Mingo might suck. Who knows?
It's possible. I just don't hate it because he's 3,300. So this projects pretty good too, actually. So this one is, and I think we could get off. You don't even have to play Pacheco here. You could play James Conner or Pacheco. But this is the lineup, Pat. So it is Goff, Laporta with the run back of Mingo. It is Bijan with the run back of Nico Collins. It is Justin Jefferson and the Tennessee defense, and then you can either run back Jefferson with Pacheco, or you can run back Boyd with James Conner. Either fits.
And what D? Tennessee D?
Yep. It just depends if you prefer James Conner and Boyd as the secondary stack, or Pacheco in there because Jefferson's already in the lineup.
And who is the flex in this? It's Mingo, right?
I'm playing 4 wide receivers.
Yeah. So
Mingo, Collins, Boyd, and Jefferson, with the stack of Goff and Laporta. Mm-hmm. And then we still get Bijan, Tennessee defense, and we have 5,800 left, which is James Conner to go with Boyd or Pacheco to go with Jefferson, however you prefer it.
Conner.
There you go.
So Goff, Bijan, Conner, Jefferson, Boyd, Collins, Laporta, Mingo, Tennessee D?
Yep.
I don't mind that lineup.
Works. And it projects well.
And I believe Mingo has passed concussion protocol in case people were wondering, so he should be playing this week.
Yeah, and you're also just, again, we don't know what he's going to do, but like the 8 and 6 and 5 I mean, he's basically Wandale Robinson the same, but not at the ownership, fits the game stack, and we don't know what his true upside potential. Like, we've seen Wandale for a while now. We haven't seen what Mingo really is going to come out and do, and we don't know yet. Maybe nothing, but in this lineup, it makes sense.
So the best projected in terms of points per dollar this week. There is one quarterback to rule them all. Matthew Stafford is second. Zach Wilson is third. The Sims love Zach Wilson. Daniel Jones is the best points per dollar quarterback on the board.
Can we just convert a lot of that lineup?
I think that we can, but what I want to try to figure out, I suppose, is what's the best way to play Daniel Jones and how do you fit the other Dolphins in with him?
I think you play like Daniel Jones, Waller, and Tyreek.
So no Wendell. If you're playing Daniel Jones, do you play Wendell Robinson?
Yes, in some.
Okay.
Because if you triple stack him again, you can make that.
But I'm talking about if I'm making this my single entry lineup. I can't play 3 lineups in a single entry, but I want to use Daniel Jones because he's so highly rated as a quarterback fantasy wise. How do I put that in?
Well, this is how I look at it, or how I always see it process wise. What's the leverage here? The leverage is Wandale. He's the only guy on the Giants that people are really going crazy with. So it's either you use him with Wandale, or you avoid Wandale and try and leverage up that way and hope that it's Jones and Waller or Jones and Slayton or something along those lines. or you triple stack it and just put Wan'Dale into the stack with them.
Is there a way where I can just say, I don't know where the ball is going to go on the Giants? Optimally, Daniel Jones rushes in 3 touchdowns for me.
Yes.
That I just play Daniel Jones.
Yes, and I like this call. Did the first look show with James, Degenerate75, and he liked this too. His point that he brought up. It was Jones with Tyreek, and that's it. And everyone's like, what do you mean? He's on the other. That's the point. It's who's the guy from the other side that you want the points?
Stack.
That's your mini stack. Is Jones is a running back, quarterback in this lineup. We're hoping that's what he is this week. Last week, he was running back the other way and getting sacked. That was the difference. So this week, you're hoping for the opposite, but to stay in it and push it, what happens here? You can use Achane, like you mentioned, if you want to use Jones and Achane and say that's how it's going to work.
Could we use 2 Dolphins here? Could we say we'll use Tyreek and Achane?
Yes.
Let's do that. So now we have our most optimal from the simulations from runthesims.com. Code Mayo, by the way, to get yourself that discount. Use your highest points per dollar quarterback and your highest points per dollar running back in the same lineup, and they're playing against each other, and you get Tyreek Hill in. So you hope that Tyreek is the one who does all the damage in the passing game, but it's not good enough to get Tua there as well, needing him. And then Achane also, like, if the Dolphins, like, you're hoping the Dolphins put up 40 points, but it's split between rushing and receiving, and then on the Giants side, they can play catch up, and everything runs through Daniel Jones.
Yeah, and you're thinking about Tyreek and Achane as like $15,100. Again, this is a more expensive combo pack than the James Conner and Rondale Moore one that we talked about earlier. This one you got to pay up for, but you're thinking now, okay, can these guys get 60 points? Yes, like literally, I think Achane almost had 60 points in 1 week, and I'm not expecting that again, but it was, 54, 30. Tyreek's out of 47 already this year. Like, these guys have to get you 60 to feel good. They definitely can get 30-30, or it can be 35-25. Like, it's definitely still possible in this setup. If you don't believe so, then look for a cheaper combo pack or different plays. We're just saying this would make sense, and that would be what pushes Daniel Jones to have to do stuff too. So I like this setup so far. I've got Bijan in there. We could still take him out, but I like the Connor Boyd one.
Yeah, that was the next 2 names.
Is there like a TV show guy named Connor Boyd? Isn't it like, man, I don't know why I thought of that name, but.
I mean, also, you don't watch much TV.
That's true.
As evidenced by the thumbnail of today's show.
Oh, what'd they get me with? I didn't see it yet.
It's Sopranos, me and you.
Oh, nice. Perfect.
So, Connor and Boyd. I put it in Jets D, by the way.
Okay.
And that makes Breece Hall pretty easy to use as our flex.
How much is Jets D this week?
$3,100. It doesn't seem like, I mean,
another nice pivot there. There you go.
Yeah, they're just kind of sandwiched in between. They kind of eluded me at first because I just assumed they were going to be like $4,000, but they're not. I guess they're underdogs in the game.
One thing interesting about that, though, is that, and this was in the tidbits today, too, is Russ has actually been cooking.
He has, yeah.
For when I've been making fun of it, it doesn't even seem like it. It's like 2 guys, actually. Him, and this one wasn't in the tidbits, but 2 guys surprised me this last 2 weeks when seeing these stats. It was Russell Wilson that I just threw in the tidbits today. No, I mean, he's been doing, that does surprise me, too. I shouldn't say that. But the other guy was Najee. Is actually apparently like his explosive rate. Like, you can get all these detailed stats
we
down.
talked about that last week. Unfortunately, he still sucks.
Yeah, it's crazy. But
like
I thought he sucked more than he does. That's what I was saying.
He is explosive, like we mentioned last week, for someone who's like running in a pool.
Yes.
Or has
I love the physiotherapy example.
Who has like concrete. Maybe he has to wear like lead shoes for weird orthopedics or something like that. That is how Najee Harris is really elite this week.
Yeah. I just thought of something else when you were saying that. There was another thing. If we go Jets D, Breece Hall, keep the James Conner Boyd one in there.
And take out Achane?
No, keep Achane. I think it leaves us, if we go Laporta as the Detroit piece.
It leaves us 5,200.
I see 53.
Okay, maybe it's 53.
Atwell?
I don't want to play Atwood. See, that's the guy that I feel like has to suffer with cutback. And maybe it's wrong. Maybe it is Puka who suffers. But they're not all going to have 15 targets. Although he still should be the deep guy.
What about if you go then, instead of that, you could play Sutton as the run back to Hall and then drop the Jets down to the Saints? Do you like that one?
No.
Okay, fair.
Sutton's fine, though. It's nothing against Sutton. Is there a cheaper tight end besides...
Yeah, we can definitely do that. Let's do that.
Instead of doing Ertz, who's filling in for Firemouth?
Darnell Washington?
Yeah, that's a Darnell Washington. How much is Darnell Washington?
Free?
Is he? Is he?
20, I don't know.
Is he 2,500?
He should be though. We'll see. And I'm not against it. I just definitely would expect that.
He is $2,500.
Yeah.
If we throw him in, we got $7,800 for a receiver. We can play Amon-Ra. We can play Puka. No, we're good to go here.
Let's go Puka.
Okay, if dead serious question. Is there under any circumstance would you play Darnell Washington?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
It's definitely like who cares at 2,500? Especially this is the other thing, Pat. Tight
Yeah,
end sucks.
I also don't want to get like a 0.
Sure, but tight end sucks this week.
He is projected for 5 points.
Yeah,
He
tight
does
end
appear in the optimal rate 1.2% of the time, though.
You could also play a Monra in this lineup as your Detroit guy when most are on Laporte. Montgomery for sure, and then maybe Laporte secondary to that. But either of those, they don't project good because of Washington, but that's the thing. Let's take Washington out, take a Monra out, keep the rest the same.
And
Who's the other, like you said, probably not Ertz, as we already have.
What if you played Irv instead of Boyd? Because he's back this week. Probably not good. We just randomly play Granson. Your guy.
Yeah, I like him. Irv.
Or I mentioned it earlier. I guess we're playing Bijan in this lineup, but you just play Jonnu Smith. No one wants to play him, although he's better than Kyle
Are we
Pitts.
playing Bijan in this lineup?
Oh, are we not?
No,
playing?
I have Achane, Connor, and Brees Hall.
Okay, let's go to Jonnu Vision then.
All right, let's do your Jonnu thing. Man, these guys aren't even in my pool.
You want to play Kyle Pitts. If you play Kyle Pitts, you've lost money every week for the past year.
Let's see how Jonnu Smith's done.
Better than Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, recently he's been doing stuff too.
He has 20% of the. I mean, the problem is that he plays for Atlanta, and they're not good. And Jonnu Smith is just open for them because they have real playmakers that the other team has to cover. So this guy's just walking there with his hands like this down the field.
So Jonnu's in the lineup. Now we can do some cool stuff because now we can try out what does these Houston guys look like. Woods leaves us 7,900.
Wait, Woods instead of who? I
Well-
only have one spot left in this lineup.
I made this lineup better then.
No, I have a receiver for $7,400.
Who did you have in there then?
Brees Hall,
Yep. James Conner, HN, Daniel
Tyreek.
Jones, Tyreek, yeah.
and Jetsy.
Yeah, that's what I have. I have Daniel Jones,
Yeah.
HN, James Conner, Brees Hall, Jets D, and then at receiver, I had Tyreek.
And Tyler Boyd.
I added Jonnu, but yeah, I took him out because
You took out Tyler Boyd.
because here's what I get when I plug in Jonnu Smith. Jonnu, I said it so weird.
Jonnu?
Jonnu. When I plug in Jonnu, I can get Robert Woods as the run back to him, and then I can get Jamar Chase in there instead of Tyler Boyd. That's better.
Yeah, is it?
Definitely.
Is it better than Tyler Boyd and who do we get?
Devontae Smith? Yeah, it's definitely better
Is
than
it?
that. Jamar, yeah.
Like a 2v2, Robert Woods and Jamar Chase versus Devonta Smith and Tyler Boyd?
Yeah, man. I like that for sure.
Okay.
Projects 7 points better. That's how bad the Devontae with Boyd, Boyd is like a plug and play guy too. Like again,
But what's realistically, listen, I'm Mr. Bobby Trees over here.
Okay.
But realistically, what besides you do save for $500, which is huge when we're trying to get Jamar Chase into this lineup over Devonta Smith. But realistically, what is the difference between Robert Woods and Tyler Boyd?
no,
Except Boyd might be the number 2 receiving option on his team. Woods could theoretically be the number 1 this week. We haven't seen that.
I can make the joke. Boyd is Wan'Dale Robinson for 4,500, and on 7, 9, and 8 targets, he's getting you 6, 8, and 10 points. Like this guy sucks. He's just a
it could
filler
be-
play,
could
and
be a
now his price is up.
Well, it could be a product of the guy throwing him the ball who's the chalk quarterback who also sucks.
Jamar Chase is who you want in this line.
Jamar Chase had one good game.
You can get Tyreek and Jamar in the same lineup there. That was way better. That's definitely a better 2v2. It projects better. It's more optimal. It's not like it's way higher owned or anything besides the fact.
Can I say I don't like either of them?
Yes. That's what we already went
That's
to.
where I want to go down to. I
But you
don't
wanted James Conner. So let's do this then.
we don't need to have. We can turn James Conner into Pacheco. It's the exact same price.
Let's do that. So I was
Okay.
just gonna. That's where I was trying to figure out in my head, and you got me there. So it's Pacheco. Now, can we get Justin Jefferson? No, 2,600.
We can get Hawkinson in instead of Smith. So let's try that. Go Hawkinson. Take out Jamar Chase. Take out Robert Woods.
I don't got Hawkinson in my pool even. What's he been doing?
Hawkinson. I feel like he gets like 38 targets a game. That's his move.
3 last week.
That's not good.
No,
Well, they also
6,500.
he is 6,500. That is true. But the first 3 games, 9, 8, and 11 targets, 78, 66, 35 yards. That's weird. Scored 2 touchdowns against Philly.
Oh man, what can we get here now? 152.
But if there's like if you're not gonna play Jefferson and you do want a Minnesota run back, it has to be Hawkinson, doesn't it? Are you gonna play Addison?
I think I'll play Addison and even grosser, I would probably then start to try and figure out that Madison stuff.
Addison's $5,300. Like
That's
he
expensive.
should be like $3,300. Like he's basically, I'm trying to think. He's basically Marvin Mims, except he catches touchdowns and doesn't like fall down at the one. Like he has one play, it's go deep, and he might end up with 0 points at $5,300.
Yeah, Mims could be in play too this week. I don't like. He's another efficiency guy like
He is,
HN,
but I think this is the right sort of game. How much is Mims? Mimsy? He's fourth. No, he's fourth.
same price as your guy.
Robert Woods. So I guess this would be the difference. Like if I was to play a cash game, or I was stacking up Houston, then I think that Robert Woods probably would be the preferred play over Marvin Mims. But for the lineup that we're constructing to try to get to the top of a larger field GPP, I think Mims makes more sense because Mims's optimal stat line looks something like 5 catches for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns, since go routes are the only things that he runs.
Yeah. I will say on Addison, it's like kind of tough because of the price point, but he's had touchdowns so far. Those have helped him. But 16, 16, and 11.
Yeah, he had touchdowns the first 2 weeks.
5,300 though, it sucks. Yeah,
It's too much money for him. He's got this artificial price boost because of what he did the first 2 weeks, catching those touchdowns. Now maybe he ends up with 2 touchdowns this week and he pays off perfectly. However, the likelihood of him scoring 0 points, I think, is probably higher than him scoring 2 touchdowns.
Is there a guy at 7,000 that you like? Ooh, we could play Olave.
Receiver or flex?
Receiver. This one's not bad.
Is Jonathan Taylor playing? We didn't even mention that.
Yeah, well, him and Cup are both similar points. They're both supposed to play. They're both supposed to get
But it seems
action.
like Cup is going to play for sure.
Yeah.
I could see us getting to Sunday and they're like, oh yeah, turns out, yeah, we don't like Jonathan Taylor. He's not playing anymore.
Yeah, definitely could happen. But he's a talking piece more once we get closer to Sunday, once we have more news. Right now, it sounds like he's good to go, though, so we'll see. That's as of this morning.
I mean, I don't feel the absolute need to correlate every single play in every single lineup that we make. Like, if we don't have a Minnesota guy with Pacheco, it's fine by me. We can figure it out somewhere else because we still have $5,000 per player for a wide receiver, and tight end.
You can also take Tyreek out and just use the Jones and get him in that way.
Yeah, but I think that's how we started this. Daniel Jones, Pacheco, Tyree.
I'm saying, yeah, but now I was good with it. My secondary version of it was that. And I really like Pacheco. I like your Hall call. I like the lineup, how it is. If you leave...
All right, let's do this. Let's take Pacheco out. Let's take Tyreek out, and then we can squeeze in Bijan. And then we can get Nico Collins or Tank Dell or whoever the hell is you want to play.
So Dell.
So now we have 2 receivers and a tight end for $5,400.
Let's try Collins.
Is there anyone that likes...
Do you still have Jonnu in?
No, I don't. I don't have a tight end.
God, man, you can't get anything going here.
It's a tough week.
It's going to be a wild one. Yeah, you can tell already just by some of these builds. Like, you're just going to take shots on these cheap quarterbacks. That's what I'm going to do, and just try and jam these guys in because you just feel so much better about, at least I do, these other guys. That's what I was trying to say earlier. When I can get like a Chase, Jefferson, Tyreek, if I can get a couple of those guys in, I do feel better about it, at least as of now, versus trying to make all these cheap guys work.
But we don't actually have a cheap guy in yet. Like we can build almost like the pure balance lineup here. Like Nico Collins has been awesome. He's not going to be the most consistent player going.
I got him in.
I mean, he scored over 30 points 2 of 4 games.
Mm-hmm.
He had 1 bad week. So I just want to fill this out quickly because there's one more stack I want to get to here.
3,500, nope. Man.
Laporta. Actually, now that we don't have Connor, I can use Ertz. So let's use Ertz at tight end. Gives us receivers for $6,400 a piece. I don't really love any of them, but... Ugh.
Yeah, it's tough, man. That's what I'm saying. Like, Collins is good there. I like that play. I like, even if we keep Tyreek in there. What happens if we just go to...
What if we just pick out 2 random names that have been good every single week? Thielen and Puka. Just chuck them in.
Man, what's that lineup completed with?
It's Daniel Jones, Achane, that together, Bijan Robinson and Nico, Thielen and Puka, Ertz, Breece Hall, and Jets D.
So that's where I messed up. I had Pacheco still in there, so Bijan. Who was the tight end? Was Ertz?
Ertz. And Ertz should project out well.
And then Tyreek, Nico, or no Nico.
Yeah, Nico, Thielen. There's no Tyreek.
Okay, Nico, Thielen, and Nakua.
Puka.
Yeah. We'll look at it.
Yeah.
What's the other stack you want to do?
I wanted to do Stroud because I think that kind of fits in with how much I enjoy Bijan this week.
Okay.
So we go Stroud, Bijan, and then fill out the receivers from there. And I think, as I said before, I feel more comfortable with playing Dell and Collins because of the upside attached to them instead of playing Robert Woods, who you've kind of convinced me maybe the best floor play going.
Until it's his week, though.
Until it's his week, sure. But
one thing is he is rating out pretty well. And it's like here's what people are saying is it's Dell week, then it's Collins week, then it's Dell week, then it's Collins week. But now it might be Bobby Tree's week and just, shock both sides. But I like how you're stacking it up that way. It's just like you said, when you go back and look at Robert Woods, he just really never does anything.
Yeah, he does enough to have us talking about him at his price every week. Like, man, if he scored a touchdown, it's a lot like Curtis Samuel on Thursday Night Football. Like, that's the kind of game that you're hoping that Robert Woods has. 6 for 67 and a touchdown.
Yeah.
And if he gets that, then he's going to be more than worth the $4,000. If he doesn't score that touchdown, you're kind of screwed. But Dell and Collins, based on their volume, for Collins, and their big play ability, like Tank Dell, they can kind of get there on their own without scoring. Like, they can get to the yardage bonuses. They can have these big plays. And if they do score the touchdowns on top of it, well, then it's just gangbusters. And that's how you get to the top. So we do this. We have $5,100 overall. Where do you think you would go after this? Would you play Connor, Pacheco, or Breece Hall at running back? Or would you play Achane, who's only $6,100?
I think you could play like Achane and Pacheco.
Okay, let's throw those two in.
Or Breece Hall, I guess you could get it in there as well.
Breece Hall is cheaper if we
Let's say if we need the $300, we go for that.
Yeah. So we throw in Pacheco into our flex. Now we have a wide receiver, tight end, and defense that we need to fill out. If we're just looking at it without trying to correlate too much here, we can put Zach Ertz in at $3,500. Mm-hmm. Now we have a wide receiver and a defense for $5,300. Let's call it Titans D. And now we have 82 for a receiver. That can get us A.J. Brown, who you liked. And if you really wanted to get tricky with this, I wonder if this works. It doesn't. He's too much money. I was going to say you could throw Higbee in instead of Ertz, but that does not work. It would work if you played Breece Hall instead of Pacheco, but I think I like Pacheco better.
Let's go with Breece Hall. What was that one if you did it? It was Breece Hall.
If you put in Breece Hall and take out, now we're $100 short. Doesn't work.
You can use Carolina D in this one because we're not putting a Detroit guy in.
Okay, so Carolina D, and then Higbee as your tight end.
There you go. That works.
To go with A.J. Brown.
Yep.
So you have full-on onslaught of Texans with Stroud, with Bijan running it back. You have Achane in there, and then no other Giants. So we're not falling into the, hey, we're playing Achane and Wendell Robinson together as the mini stack, because I assume if people aren't stacking up that game overall, that's just going to be in most people's lineups.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think the other thing about this, the only thing we're kind of missing off the mentions that we've had throughout the show, which was the Arizona-Cincy game, but we also said, what if that one just busts and is not the thing? We've got Carolina D against Detroit, so we're saying we're not on Detroit, may as well just have the opposite D. We've got the Philly-LA game. We don't have mini KC in here, though, is the other thing. So really...
Well, we had Pacheco. But again, all we're saying in this game is that Jefferson doesn't go off, who's going to be the chalk piece of that game, and that Kansas City spreads it around enough that they're not going to kill us.
And it's expensive.
Yes.
Is also what
we
we're
could
saying.
play Rashid Rice in this lineup if we wanted to.
Well, no, let me see. I thought about something else, actually. If I go to what I was mentioning earlier, because if people are playing Breece Hall and we're thinking about playing Pacheco, can I get there? No. Man, it's just like you're short on everything no matter what. I think I actually can do this, though. Okay, here's the lineup. We got it.
You got it?
Oh, yeah.
That was quick. That didn't seem all that difficult
Sometimes
to
I
do.
just remember the prices and I see them and make it happen. This is the lineup, Pat. Bang. And it's our best projected of the day.
Is it the Stroud lineup still?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Guess how you make it better. Bobby Trees. Stroud, Woods.
So no Collins?
No, I got Collins still.
So Dell down to Woods.
Dell goes down to Woods. You still keep Bijan. You still keep Achane. You get Jefferson, Pacheco. We're not playing Detroit, so you go Carolina D against them, and it lands you on Tyler Conklin. We're not playing Breece Hall. Play Conklin.
With Jets or with Panthers D.
And you could play, oh, wow. I'm going to double down on this puppy. You know that. Get Conklin out. Give me that 5-man game stack with Kyle Pitts to round the show out. If we are, I don't know if we're done, but Stroud, Woods, Collins, Bijan, Pitts. Give me Jefferson and Pacheco Achane, and Carolina D. That's the one.
I can theoretically make this lineup better.
Let's see if it actually projects better.
It won't project better.
Okay,
but
what
I can
do you
tell you
think?
how it is better.
Sure.
'Cause it'll score more points. That's what I'm trying to do here. Score more points.
Let's see.
In my lineup. Let's go with that exact same lineup, but you take Kyle Pitts out and you play Jonnu Smith instead.
Okay.
And now we don't have to play Carolina defense, and we have an extra, $500, $400 to spend wherever we want to, and see if that can make it better.
You said you could make it better. Now we're seeing if we could make it better.
Well, I mean, just the fact that it doesn't have Kyle Pitts, I feel like it instantly is better because it's not going to have a 0 at tight end.
I'm actually still comfortable with Carolina D though. Let's try and spend that $400 elsewhere. We can't quite get to Dell now though because we need. Oh, you know what you could? How much was he? 50. Who was 5,700? Oh, it's Madison. I thought we needed 58.
Just to take the defense out, we can now get up to. We can get back up to Titans D.
There's no. That's not a win
That's
for me.
not making
That's
it-
worse for me.
Yeah, it's hard to really upgrade, but you make the upgrade from Jonnu to Pitts, which is probably worth it. Even if you,
It's who knows. It's
even
just
if
at
you
least
leave
he's
money-
fitting into something that would make sense. Like
Yeah.
if Pitts is having a 2-touchdown game, you got to think Stroud is breaking the slate because it's like that's got to be the first thing. You know, everyone would think it's Ritter too because you could attach him to Ritter, but I would prefer just to be on the Stroud side and just play it that way.
Jefferson and Pacheco. This lineup's pretty good.
That's probably one of the better.
Pretty good.
Yeah, you get the Minnesota. I mean, we're missing Arizona, Cincy, and LA, Philly. You're never going to have them all, though, right? That's kind of the point that we're always getting to. What if the way you look at that one is it's Hurts who does all the work? He's too expensive. It's Mucky on the other side with guys like Kupp back, with Nakua, with everything, and they're expensive, and that's hard to work out. And then you say, as far as the Arizona Cincy game goes, you were already even comfortable. You're like, do I have to play any of these guys? Mix and Chase, you didn't want to pick. We had Chase or Boyd. You didn't like that, so that just tells the story of everything we talked about today.
I just got a text from Cust.
Oh God,
It just says,
did he win?
do you know what's really cheap? Getting keys cut. How much do you think that he thought that getting keys cut were? Like, when you walk in to, like, hey, I need a new key.
It's like a game of Aladdin thing.
What are they going to be like? $70 for a new key? Isn't it like $1?
I mean, can you text him how much he thinks it's cost? Because this can't make this up. I'm going to guess he thought it would be like $55.
Oh, I am. He said he's shocked at the price of.
I seriously think he probably thought it was like $49 or $55 or something. Like he thought it was going to cost him $50.
I really hope I get a text back here in a second because this will just be perfect. Yeah.
Well, we wait on it. That lineup, though, what I was saying is it's funny because we just went to Stroud at the ending. We're like, let's go to the stack. But it was at least the most likely for us to be able to get a lot of the other pieces of the games and the spots that we wanted. While still, in this case, like I said, we're avoiding the Cincy, Arizona, and the Philly, LA. But you don't even really like Cincy and Arizona, so who cares? And it's not like we love the defenses in that. And Philly, LA has a real setup where it could be Hurts, could be Swift, Gainwell. Like who knows what's going to get involved with. Goddard finally has a good game, and we don't know where to fit the pieces in. And then you need a pick between Nakua, Kupp, Atwell, Kieran Williams, all of those things. Higbee, who you've mentioned. Like it does look like that could be a game where there's potential where you could just avoid it as well in some of these lineups. So I like this setup that we just did. I do like Stafford lineups. We didn't get to a lot of those today. We did one.
They were far more tough.
They were tough to work out, though.
Yeah. Like, I think that's the first thing that we learned off the hop was if you want to play Stafford and if you do want to double it up, like you're going to have to use Tutu or Higbee to go with either Puka.
I think I like Tutu just on the record. I think that was one thing I'll say.
He's the big play guy, right? Like if he still had 5 for 125 and 2 touchdowns because there's more attention being drawn to Kupp being back and Puka, he's just a free man running down the field. I see how that makes sense.
And also Tutu versus Addison, it's not really that far off, but it looks like, I don't know, I guess neither of them will have the ownership because of the price, but just funny because that balanced range, people are doing like the Wandale or something down there or going up to what we talked about, the guys up above, or they're going to like Boyd, who you mentioned at 4,500 in this range. These guys, like he's got 20, 15, 17 last game. He still had 9 targets. Again, Kupp coming back isn't ideal, but I think it affects other guys more than someone like Tutu. We'll have to wait and see.
With that final lineup that we made that had Jefferson, did you have Achane in it?
Yep.
It did. And Bijan. You have 3 of the 4 highest projected optimal plays on the slate in your lineup. And that's where your ownership is going with those guys. But I have a feeling that those 3, because they don't really have, like Jefferson and Kelsey are number 1 and 2. So they're going to be correlated the most in these lineups despite being expensive, which means they won't have the other 2 in them. But I think running those 3 together, I think is going to be pretty different.
Yeah, and I also think that the Pacheco Jefferson works better just because, well, yes, you have to use up a tight end spot. It's a onesie position, all that. But with Kelsey, if his big day is going to be involving Mahomes, most likely, because it's like a 2 or 3 touchdown day. Swifties go nuts everywhere. Like, it's going to be that thing. You know what it's like. If that happens, I don't think we're going to see it. And I like the Pacheco play at 5,700 more.
And Pacheco's still inside the top 15. The other cheap receiver that we didn't say who does pop up quite often, there's 2 of them. Zay Flowers is one, but right now that's still being run as if Beckham and Bateman aren't playing. The other one is Josh Downs at $3,700.
Which we liked him last week, by the way.
Yeah, but I mean, is he markedly different than Wendell Robinson and Robert Woods and Tyler Boyd and all those guys?
No.
So probably why we don't end up getting to him. Anyway, that will do it on the Pat Mayo Experience. Didn't hear back from Cuss. Yes, Paul.
Breaking news.
Oh, breaking news. Okay.
Claypool to the Dolphins.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah,
He's not playing this week, right?
I don't know.
Bet the house on the Giants. As we've seen, if Chase Claypool plays for your team, instant loss. It's an auto loss if you have Chase Claypool.
Yeah, good spread number on it, too, 12.5.
Is it up to 12.5?
Yeah, Giants are horrible. There's no way they could do anything.
Just like the Bears.
Correct.
No way they could win.
Now, Miami is a much better team, and they're at home and all of that, but you never know.
Looking good for our Daniel Jones catch-up lineups.
Yeah, I'm good. I like it.
Let's have it. All right, that will do it on the Pat Mayo Experience. Play in the Listeners League. Grab one of those final spots. Tambo will be live on Sunday morning, 9:45 a.m. Eastern Time with Hoop Title. Ship It Nation, shipitnation.com. Code MAYO, get you the discount. But that show is free if you have questions, want to watch, and it'll have all of the updated information and playing off what we talked about today.
Yep, that's right.
So go do that now. Runthesims.com/Mayo. We'll get you 10% off all the stats and all the tools. Wonder if I can give away one of the prop snipers. I don't like to play the prop sniper really until like Saturday afternoon once we get the final injury report. But the one guy we didn't talk about in a game that we like, right now the one closing in on the highest, so I try to look for 20-point leverage score or higher on these props. This one is 19.9. It is Dameon Pierce over 48.5 rushing yards.
I like that one.
And after his full practice, then...
O-line coming back, match. I just think it's possible.
Yeah, I'm playing Stroud probably in my main lineup, which means he's going to be absolute dog shit. So Dameon Pierce, 8 touchdowns this week.
Good leverage.
3,000 yards rushing, 8 touchdowns. That's what you're looking for. And his prop is only 48.5. And the Sims really like the over on that. And Tony Pollard over receptions is another one. Although they love using Rico Dwaddle.
I like
As
the
a
Tony
pass
Pollard
catcher.
one too, actually. What's the number? 3.5?
2.5.
2.5? When is that game? Monday Night Football?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we got time.
It's 2.5 at a place that we don't talk about because this show is sponsored by DraftKings. It is the only place that is hanging at 2.5. It's 3.5 everywhere else.
Nice.
So take that for what it's worth. Runthesims.com/Mayo. You can use the prop finder, the optimizer, whatever it is. You can customize your own projections and build your lineups over there. All right, smash the like on the way out. Sub to Mayo Media Network, and I will see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!